Welcome along to South Today's Sport. Connor Harvey is a New Zealand downhill mountain biker who's represented New Zealand in South Africa, having a bit of a break at the moment due to injury, and that's a good chance for us to catch up and find out what his plans are for the future and to track down his past and how he got to be so good. Connor, welcome along to the show.
Thank you.
All right, let's before we talk about your most recent achievements, let's go back to the beginning about when you took up this sport. How did it come about? It's a family connection there, I believe.
Yeah, well, back in 2009, my uncle took me to a national race at Coronet Peak. I would have been 14 back then, and sort of I had always ridden bikes, just as most people generally do. But that really just sparked an interest for me from there, and I just pretty much fell in love with it and began saving to buy my first proper mountain bike.
What sort of age were you when you first became exposed to it?
To bikes in general, well, probably 3, 4, 5, just starting off on training wheels and then just riding around like a kid, and yeah. And
what sort of age when you come across mountain biking?
It would have been probably about 10, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay, so you had a bit of time in the sector before then.
Yeah, a little bit of time before then. Yeah.
So what attracted you to this particular sport? What was the thrill, do you think?
I thought it was just pretty exciting, just quite a challenge, and it was just extremely impressive to watch. Just jumps, high speed. Probably the adrenaline as well is quite an attraction.
Okay.
Yep.
So from there, you get yourself a bike. When do you start competing for real?
Well, the first bike I got was sort of not really up to scratch. So sort of mid 2011, I started getting into it and doing some races, and probably sort of from 2012 I started to take it pretty seriously, and that was the first year I competed in the national series.
Right. You mentioned the bike. For those who don't do a lot of mountain biking, how much is the bike? How much is the person in that case?
The bike is pretty important. Like once you get to a high quality bike, there's small differences between each bike, and each person has a personal setup that varies between the bikes, between whatever size you are, all that sort of carry on. But really the skill is the biggest thing.
What about the stature of the person? You're quite tall. Is there an advantage of being tall or short, squat, strong? What are the attributes of a good downhill?
I think that sort of my build is quite good, but when you look at the top level riders, there's a variation in whether they're small or they're tall. They're all good. So it doesn't really seem to matter on the top level as to how you're built. It's just, I guess you can train yourself to be stronger and improve yourself in all your weaknesses.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in a short space of time you started to be competitive. When did you get to sort of national level where you could compete with the best in this country?
Well, my first national series in 2012, I just competed in the Southland rounds, and that was sort of that was quite an eye-opener. My first race, I was in the under 19 age group category, which is pretty competitive, like quite challenging, and I got 5th in my first race, so I managed to get on the podium, and I was pretty over the moon with that. And I had some good results throughout the rest of the series, some more top 10s, and that sort of just thought, well, maybe I could actually do well at this. So my cousin suggested to me that I should try and make the world champs team the following year. So from there, that was sort of my goal. That was for 2013.
That's a rapid improvement again, isn't it? To go from sort of 5 in the South Island to New Zealand rep. Yeah.
Well, out of the South Island series, that was everyone in the country competing in that as well.
Okay.
But yeah, then so the next year I was sort of just knuckled down and worked hard to be fast and strong for the 2013 series, and I had a really good series. First race was here in Bluff, and I won that. And
but a hometown advantage helped with knowing the course?
Yeah, definitely, it would have helped a bit, yeah. And you just sort of stayed in the top 5 for the rest of the series, and ended up 3rd overall for the whole series. So that was really good. I was over the moon with that.
Was that your springboard to get in the New Zealand team?
Yeah, definitely. That was sort of
It's a great reward, isn't it? For all that work you put in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So you find yourself heading to South Africa. Got an exciting prospect, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of quite an eye-opener, never having really travelled outside New Zealand at all, apart from Australia, but it's sort of not really too much different. Yeah. So yeah, South Africa, it was awesome. It was just a completely different country, and just the culture and everything was really interesting, just to experience a whole different way of living and way of life, and sort of exposed to poverty and
what were the competitive conditions like though? Was it good setup there?
It was good. It was very, like, the track itself was extremely fast. It was not the sort of track that I felt I could do well on it, but not my favourite sort of track. Like, I prefer a track that's more technical and quite steep, and lots of rocks, roots, technical challenges, whereas this track was extremely peddly, and lots of big jumps and very high speeds, sort of reaching sort of 80 over 80k in some sections. Right. So it was sort of felt like I got thrown in the deep end a bit, which was, I mean, you got to start somewhere, don't you? And I was like, there was about 50 people in my age group, and
were you happy where you finished? Or?
I wasn't happy with how I did. No, I was quite disappointed, to be honest.
But it told you how good you have to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And
I didn't think that my result reflected on my own sort of skill level. So that really motivated me to improve and take it to another level again.
Okay, so you get back from South Africa. What was your plan then? As to, obviously you wanted to have you had a taste of international competition. You'd want more.
Definitely. So sort of coming back in New Zealand, our summer it's a summer sport. So we have the New Zealand series, New Zealand local races and national races. And in December I ended up breaking my collarbone. Right. So that put me out for our summer series.
A year ago.
Yeah. So it was. So I'd sort of just been training for probably about a month, building up for the nationals, and then sort of was intending to continue building up to go overseas and compete in Europe. I would have left and gone over in May. Right. And then so in April I broke my wrist, so I sort of come back from one injury, and then recovered and strong, and did one race, and then just sort of got knocked back down again. So that was my trip away all over, and so I just sort of took the winter off and just recovered and got that wrist strong, and got back up to speed, and got my own, my head right, and I was feeling really confident. And then we come back into our summer, sort of spring summer again, and we have sort of another local series here called just the Southern Series. It's sort of Southland and Otago, and I was pretty happy with how I went there. Won two of the races, got a second, won the first race back from injury, so that was really good. That was quite a big confidence booster for me. I was expecting to do well, but not quite that well. And then sort of this 5-race series. In the fourth race, I had another crash and dislocated my shoulder and broke the top of my humerus. So sort of back to square one again.
So what's your recovery time like? What's the prognosis?
Well, that was on the 8th of November I did that. So physio sort of hoping that we'll be back to full strength for downhill racing in maybe another eight weeks. Right. So it's still quite a way away, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll be back on cross country bike and just riding, easy riding and just getting back to it. But it didn't really hinder my training too much. I haven't been able to do much upper body work, but I've been working pretty hard in the gym on my lower body legs and then on the stationary bike as well with my fitness. So
that string of injuries hasn't put you off the sport?
No, it hasn't. I think it just makes you stronger and more determined, really. It gives you opportunity to work on other things. So as I said before, I've worked pretty hard on my mind and sort of being able to prepare for races and prepare for injuries and then come back from them. So that's pretty important part of all sports, really. I think is mine.
And how have you spent your downtime developing other parts of your life other than just cycling, in case you don't make a career of it?
Yeah, well, I'm doing a building apprenticeship at the moment, so you can't really build when you're injured, but I have been working away at the bookwork that goes alongside with that, so that does give you opportunity to knuckle down and get that done as well.
All right, we're out of time. Thanks very much for that very interesting life story. We hope you bounce back very quickly from your injuries. We look forward to seeing you on the international circuit very, very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Conor Harvey. That's the South Today tonight. See you tomorrow.